Chosen one, if this message found you tonight, it's not by chance. It's divine pursuit. Let me ask you something that's going to shake you. Why are you still searching? After all these years, after all you've given, after raising families, building lives, serving others, why does your soul still feel like it's reaching for something just out of grasp? And here's the one that'll hit you hardest. What if the very thing you've been desperately seeking has been staring back at you in the mirror your entire life? Listen to me carefully, because I'm about to tell you something the church won't say, something your family doesn't understand, something that's been hidden in plain sight for decades. You've been chosen for something extraordinary and you've been missing it. You've been sitting at the edge of something sacred, like someone waiting on a porch for a sunrise you can't yet see, feeling the warmth building but wondering if morning will ever truly come. The ache in your chest isn't depression, it's divine recognition. That restlessness isn't AJ, it's awakening. Here's the shocking truth they never told you. You've given, sacrificed, poured out your life for others, raised generations with your own two hands. And yet, deep in those quiet moments when nobody's watching, you still feel like you've been missed by people who should have seen your worth, by opportunities that passed you by, and sometimes, in your most honest moments, maybe even by God himself. But what if I told you that feeling isn't rejection, it's redirection? What if what you've been missing isn't out there in the world? What if it's been hidden inside you all along, and this is the moment heaven finally reveals it? You didn't stumble upon this message. You were guided here. Every disappointment, every closed door, every time you felt overlooked, it was all leading to this moment of recognition. You've been searching for signs. This is one. There's something written in your very DNA, something that's been dormant but never dead, something that's about to be awakened if you have the courage to stay and listen. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead. If you feel something stirring right now, even just a whisper in your spirit, drop "I'm ready" in the comments. And I'm begging you, stay until the end. Because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie you've believed about your purpose. Your soul will thank you. This is your moment. Don't you dare scroll away. Tell me something, and be honest. How many times have you looked in the mirror and wondered where that fire went? That passion, that sense of purpose you once carried like a torch, when did it flicker down to barely more than smoke? And here's the question that'll cut deepest. What if I told you that what you think died inside you was never meant to die at all? Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to reveal will shake you to your very core. You've been walking around for decades thinking you missed your moment, thinking your best years are buried somewhere behind you in a graveyard of what-ifs and if-onlys. You buried your gifts to raise a family. You set aside your dreams to serve others. You gave everything, your time, your energy, your very Suland, were left with what felt like silence. But that silence wasn't empty. It was sacred preparation. The world has been lying to you. Society told you that after 60, 70, 80 years, you're supposed to fade quietly into the background, content with your memories, grateful for what little remains. They convinced you that your voice doesn't matter anymore, that your dreams were naive, that your calling was just youthful foolishness. But God never got that memo. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Jeremiah 1-5. Read that again. Before you were born. Not after you proved yourself. Not after you got it all figured out. Not after you became perfect. Before you even drew your first breath. God etched your name on his scroll before time began, but the world has been trying to erase it ever since. Every rejection, every disappointment, every time someone told you to be realistic, be practical, be quiet. Those weren't corrections. They were distractions from your divine assignment. You think that restlessness you feel is discontent. You think that ache in your chest is regret. You think those tears that come in the quiet moments are grief for what you'll never have. You're wrong. That's not grief, that's recognition. Your spirit recognizing what it was created for. That restlessness isn't discontent, it's your soul refusing to settle for less than what God intended. Those tears aren't mourning what's lost, they're birthing what's about to be born. You've been carrying something inside you for decades, something that was planted before your first heartbeat, watered by every trial, fertilized by every failure, strengthened by every storm. And now, at this very moment, when the world wants to convince you it's too late, God is saying, now is the time. That scar you carry, the one from the divorce that broke you, the one from the child you lost, the one from the business that failed, the one from the dreams that seemed to die. It's not a wound, it's a mark of destiny. Every prophet in Scripture carried scars. Moses stuttered. David was overlooked by his own father. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers. Jeremiah was called too young. But God didn't disqualify them, He qualified them through their pain. Your scars aren't evidence of your failure. They're proof of your preparation. The same fire that tried to destroy you was actually forging you into something the world desperately needs. You weren't broken, you were being broken open so that what's inside you could finally pour out. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been so convinced that your time has passed that you've stopped listening for God's voice. You've been so focused on what you've lost that you can't see what you're about to gain. You've been so busy grieving yesterday that you're missing the miracle of today. Stop. Right now, wherever you are, whatever you're feeling, stop and hear this. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are exactly where God needs you to be, carrying exactly what this generation needs to receive. The gifts you buried aren't dead, they're dormant. The dreams you surrendered aren't lost, they're being resurrected. The voice you silenced isn't gone. It's about to roar with the authority of someone who has walked through hell and came out holding heaven's fire. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation. Abraham was 75 when God promised him descendants like the stars. Anna was 84 when she became the first evangelist of Jesus Christ. 84. They didn't retire from their calling, they graduated into it. Your wrinkles aren't signs of decay, they're evidence of endurance. Your grey hair isn't a symbol of being past your primates, a crown of wisdom that this foolish world desperately needs. Your slow walk isn't weakness, it's the steady gait of someone who has learned where not to step. If you've ever felt invisible, like your best years were behind you, that lie is about to shatter. Because the God who marked you before time began doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't have expiration dates on His purposes, and He sure doesn't waste the investment He's made in your life. But here's what you need to understand. This awakening has an expiration date. You know what breaks my heart? It's sitting across from someone who's lived 8 decades on this earth, who's weathered storms that would break younger souls, who's given everything they had to give, and they still whisper, I feel forgotten. Let me tell you something that's going to shake the foundation of everything you've believed about your pain. Every wound you carry, every disappointment that still aches in your chest, every door that slammed shut when you needed it, none of it was wasted. God doesn't waste wounds. He weaves them. Some of you feel like you've been locked in a room of disappointment for decades. The dreams you buried, the children who moved away and never call, the spouse you lost too soon, the career that never took off, the ministry that never grew. You've been sitting in what feels like a prison cell of what could have been, and you're wondering if heaven even remembers your address. But here's what they never told you in Sunday school. Joseph didn't just get thrown into a pit by his brothers. He got thrown into purpose. That boy with the colorful coat didn't just survive prison, he was prepared in it. Listen to me carefully. When Joseph was rotting in that Egyptian dungeon, forgotten by the cupbearer, ignored by the world. Do you think he understood what God was doing? Genesis 39-20 tells us Joseph's master took him and put him in prison. It doesn't say God abandoned him, it says God was positioning him. What if your prison wasn't punishment? What if it was preparation? You weren't buried, dear one. You were planted. And yes, the roots took longer because the fruit will feed more people than you ever imagined. That isolation you've endured, that wasn't rejection, that was cultivation. God has been growing something in the darkness of your disappointment that couldn't have grown any other way. Think about this. Joseph spent 13 years between the pit and the palace. 13 years of wondering, God, where are you? 13 years of serving other people's dreams while his own seemed dead. But every single day in that prison was adding another layer to his character, another degree to his wisdom, another pound to his spiritual weight. And you've been in your own Egypt. Maybe it's been 20 years, maybe 30, maybe 50. You prayed for healing but got delay. You asked for companionship but got solitude. You begged for breakthrough but got more breaking. But here's the truth that's going to change everything. What feels like abandonment is often alignment. That silence you've been interpreting as God's disinterest, that's been his strategy. Every unanswered prayer wasn't heaven saying no, it was heaven saying not yet. Because the blessing God has for you is so massive, so generational, so earth-shaking that you had to be prepared to handle it. Joseph didn't know that his pain was positioning him to save nations. He didn't know that his prison was actually his promotion in disguise. All he knew was darkness. All he felt was abandonment. But Psalm 105-19 reveals the secret. Until the time that his word came to pass, the word of the Lord tested him. The word of the Lord tested him, not tormented him, tested him. You want to know why your breakthrough has taken so long? Because God doesn't promote people to positions they can't sustain. He doesn't give you authority over kingdoms until he knows you can handle the weight of a crown. That delay wasn't denial, it was divine preparation. Right now, some of you are sitting in your final season of testing. You feel it, don't you? That stirring in your spirit, that sense that something is shifting, that restlessness that won't let you settle into defeat. That's not your age talking. That's not your emotions lying to you. That's the Spirit of God breathing on dry bones, getting ready to say, live again. But here's what you need to understand. Your breakthrough isn't coming because you've been perfect. It's coming because you've been persistent. It's not about how many times you fell. It's about how many times you got back up. It's not about how loud your prayers were. It's about how long your faith lasted. Genesis 41-14 says, Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon. Did you catch that? Quickly. After 13 years of slow waiting, the elevation happened in one day. One phone call changed everything. One conversation shifted a lifetime of preparation into a moment of promotion. Your quickly is coming. That diagnosis that's been hanging over you. God's about to speak health. That financial burden that's been crushing you. Heaven's about to release provision. That family situation that's been breaking your heart. The God who specializes in dead things is about to breathe resurrection. But I need you to understand something that will determine whether you're ready for what's coming. The silence wasn't God's absence. It was his strategy. And tonight he breaks it. You see, Joseph's story wasn't just about Joseph. It was about saving a generation. Your story isn't just about you either. There are people waiting on your breakthrough who don't even know your name yet. There are prayers being prayed by people who need what God has been developing in you during your dark season. What if everything you've endured was preparing you to become the answer to someone else's desperate prayer? The question isn't whether God remembers you. The question is, are you ready for him to reveal what he's been preparing? Because when he does, everything changes. And I mean everything. Your silence is about to become your strongest sermon. Your pain is about to become your greatest platform. Your test is about to become your testimony. But only if you're willing to believe that your best days aren't behind you, they're just beginning. Dear chosen one, I need to tell you something that's going to cut deep, but it's going to set you free. For decades, you've been fighting the wrong enemy. You thought it was your finances keeping you down. You thought it was your health failing you. You thought it was the loneliness eating away at your soul in the quiet hours of the night. But those were just symptoms. The real war, the real battle that's been raging around you for 70, 80 years of your life. It's been your misalignment with your divine assignment. You've been living under your calling, not in it. Listen to me carefully. You were not born to fit quietly in a pew. You were born to shake the very gates of hell. The enemy didn't attack your bank account by accident. He didn't target your body randomly. He didn't isolate you from family and friends for sport. No, beloved, the enemy didn't attack you for who you were in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. He attacked you for who you'd become if you ever remembered who you really are. And right now, at this very moment, heaven is trying to remind you. You see, there's been a cosmic case of mistaken identity. The world looked at your gray hair and saw decline. God looks at your silver crown and sees refinement. The world saw your slower steps and called it limitation. Heaven sees your measured pace and calls it wisdom. The world whispered your time is over, but the Almighty is declaring your finest hour is now. In 1 Samuel 16:7, God told the prophet Samuel something revolutionary. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. While everyone else has been counting your years, God has been counting your victories. While they've been measuring your steps, He's been measuring your faith. You've been dressed in humility for so long, you forgot that beneath that robe is royalty. But here's what's been breaking my heart as I've walked with the Lord for 5 decades. The church taught you to wait for heaven instead of bringing heaven to earth. They taught you to endure instead of overcome. They taught you to be humble instead of bold. And somewhere along the way, you started believing that your season of power was behind you. That is a lie from the pit of hell. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation. Abraham was 75 when God promised him descendants like the stars. Sarah was 90 when she held her miracle baby. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over the Christ child in the temple. God doesn't retire His generals. He promotes them. But here's the tragedy. Here's what's been keeping you up at night with that gnawing feeling that something's not right. You've been trying to fix the wrong problems. You've been praying for better circumstances when God wants to awaken your authority. You've been asking for comfort when He's calling you to conquest. The devil knows something about your generation that you've forgotten. He knows that when a praying grandmother gets activated, when a seasoned saint remembers their authority, when someone who's been through the fire finally stands up and says, "Enough," trembles. That's why he's worked so hard to convince you that your influence is fading. That's why he's whispered that your voice doesn't matter anymore. That's why he's tried to make you feel invisible, forgotten, pushed aside, because he knows what happens when you align with your true assignment. Deuteronomy 34:7 tells us that when Moses died at 120, his eyes were undimmed and his natural force unabated. Natural force unabated. That means his power was still rising, not falling. His impact was increasing, not decreasing. You think your best days are behind you. You think God's done using you. You think you're supposed to quietly fade into the background. You couldn't be more wrong. The reason you feel restless is because there's still fire in your bones. The reason you can't settle is because there's still purpose in your pulse. The reason you're watching this message right now is because heaven is staging an intervention in your life. God is not done with you. He's just getting started. But here's the key that unlocks everything. You've got to stop trying to be who you used to be and start becoming who you were always meant to be. You've got to stop fighting yesterday's battles and start engaging today's assignment. The misalignment isn't just hurting you. It's hurting everyone who's supposed to receive what God placed inside you. There are prayers that won't get answered until you remember how to pray them. There are breakthroughs that won't come until you remember how to break through. There are generations waiting for you to remember your power. Isaiah 46:4 records God's promise. Even to your old age I am He, and even to gray hairs I will carry you. I have made, and I will bear. Even I will carry, and will deliver. Did you catch that? Even to gray hairs, God says, I will carry you, not retire you, not sideline you, carry you into your destiny. But beloved, here's the question that will determine everything that happens next in your life. Are you ready to stop fighting the wrong battle and start winning the right war? Listen to me, chosen one. I need you to understand something that's going to shake the very foundation of how you see time itself. Saturday isn't just another day on your calendar. It's not just the weekend. It's not just a time to rest or catch up on chores. Saturday is a divine appointment that heaven scheduled before your first breath ever touched this earth. You've been looking at your calendar wrong your entire life. You see dates, God sees destinies. You see weekends, He sees windows of eternity. And this Saturday, this specific Saturday, carries a frequency that your spirit has been waiting decades to receive. Some days in God's calendar aren't just dates, they're appointments. Think about it. When Moses stood before the burning bush, it wasn't just any Tuesday. When David faced Goliath, it wasn't just another morning. When Esther approached the king uninvited, it wasn't just another day in the palace. These were divine appointments disguised as ordinary moments. And you, dear soul, are standing at the threshold of your own burning bush moment. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me awake at night praying for people just like you. You've been waiting for a sign, waiting for clarity, waiting for doors to open, waiting for God to move. And all this time, He's been waiting for you to recognize that the very day you've been treating as ordinary is the extraordinary moment He's prepared for your breakthrough. Don't ignore this. You've waited long enough. I want you to think about Abraham for a moment. Genesis 22 tells us God tested Abraham on a specific day. Not next week, not when it was convenient, but on the day God appointed. Abraham could have delayed. He could have made excuses. He could have said, God, tomorrow would be better. But he didn't. He rose early in the morning and obeyed. And that obedience on that specific day secured a covenant for generations. What if your Saturday is your Genesis 22 moment? What if God has been orchestrating every single event in your life to bring you to this exact point in time? You see, the enemy knows something about divine timing that most believers miss. He knows that delayed obedience is still disobedience. He knows that when God opens a window, it doesn't stay open forever. That's why he's been whispering in your ear for years. You have time. You can wait. There's no rush. But I'm here to tell you that those whispers are lies from the pit of hell. Saturday holds something heaven wrote before you were born. And if you miss it, you'll feel the ache of almost. Let me paint you a picture that's going to hit you right in the chest. Imagine you're standing in front of a door, not just any door, but the door. The door you've been praying about, dreaming about, crying about for years. And you're holding the key. You've always been holding the key. But you keep looking at the key, studying the key, talking about the key, instead of using it. That's where you are right now. Saturday isn't a date on your calendar. It's a key in the lock of your destiny. And here's the part that's going to shake you to your core. Every closed door you've faced, every no you've received, every delay you've endured it, was all preparation for this moment. God wasn't ignoring your prayers. He was timing them. He wasn't deaf to your cries. He was orchestrating the perfect moment when heaven and earth would align for your breakthrough. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, Solomon writes, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." This isn't poetry, this is prophecy. And your season, your time, your purpose, it's converging on Saturday. But let me ask you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. How many divine appointments have you already missed because you were too busy, too distracted, too comfortable in your routine? How many times has God shown up and you didn't show up? How many burning bushes have you walked past because you were looking at your phone instead of looking up? I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm trying to wake you up. Because if you miss this Saturday, if you treat it like just another day, you're not just missing a moment, you're missing a movement of God that's been years in the making. God didn't bring you through all that just to watch you miss the door when it opens. Think about everything you've survived. Every heartbreak that should have destroyed you but didn't. Every financial crisis that should have ruined you but didn't. Every health scare that should have taken you out but didn't. Every betrayal that should have broken you but didn't. You didn't survive all of that by accident. You survived because God had a Saturday appointment with your destiny. And now, right now, you're closer to your breakthrough than you've ever been. But here's the thing about divine doors: they require divine action. You can't pray your way through a door you're not willing to walk through. You can't worship your way into a promise you're not willing to possess. Revelation 3:8 says, "I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it." But notice, God opens the door, but you have to walk through it. So let me be crystal clear about what Saturday requires of you. This isn't about showing up half-heartedly. This isn't about giving God your leftover time after you've done everything else. This is about consecration. This is about setting Saturday apart as holy ground. Clear your Saturday. Set it apart. Fast. Pray. Listen. And when the nudge comes, move. I need you to understand the weight of this moment. You are not just listening to a message. You are receiving a prophetic word that could change the trajectory of your entire life. But prophecy without action is just pretty words. Divine timing without divine response is just missed opportunity. Your Saturday appointment is waiting. The question is, will you show up? Listen to me, dear one. I need you to stop everything you're doing right now and hear this with your whole heart. For too long, you've been walking through your days carrying a weight that was never meant to be yours, the crushing belief that your best years are behind you, that your purpose expired with your youth, that God somehow moved on and forgot to include you in his plans. That is the greatest lie the enemy has ever whispered in your ear. You're sitting there right now, maybe in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, looking at your hands that have worked, loved, served, sacrificed, and wondering if they have anything left to offer this world. You see the lines, the spots, the tremor that wasn't there before, and you think, my time has passed. But what if I told you that those very hands are about to be used for the greatest work of your entire life? Let me shatter something for you right now. Moses, the man who split the Red Sea, who led 2 million people out of slavery, who spoke face to face with Almighty God, Moses received his greatest calling at 80 years old. 80. When the world would have put him in a rocking chair, God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now we begin." Exodus 7:7 tells us Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. The very moment the world counted them out, heaven counted them in. You think you're too late? Moses was just getting started at your age. Here's what's happening in the spirit realm right now, and I need you to see this clearly. Like a curtain slowly drawing back on a stage, your life is about to reveal Act 2. And this will be the one heaven talks about for eternity. The first act was preparation. The second act is demonstration. Every heartbreak you endured wasn't wasted, it was shaping your compassion. Every financial struggle wasn't punishment, it was building your faith. Every sleepless night you spent worrying about your children, your grandchildren, your future, that wasn't anxiety. That was intercession, training you for something bigger than you've ever imagined. You didn't miss it, beloved. You were being preserved. Think about it. Why are you still here? Why, when so many of your friends have gone home to glory, are you still breathing, still thinking, still feeling that unexplainable stirring in your spirit? Because God isn't finished with you. He's been saving the best wine for last. John 2:10 says, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." That's not just about a wedding in Cana. That's about your life right now. The best is yet to come. But here's where I need to get real with you, because time is not standing still. While you've been believing the lie that you're past your prime, others half your age are struggling with depression, anxiety, purposelessness. They're searching for wisdom, for meaning, for someone who's walked through the fire and can show them how to find God in the ashes. They need what you carry. They need your story. They need your strength. You think your scars disqualify you? Your scars are your credentials. You think your age disqualifies you? Your age is your authority. The young may have energy, but you have something they don't. You have endurance. You've proven that you can survive what others only fear. Every trial was a test. Every test was building testimony. And testimony real. Lived, battle-tested testimony that's the currency of heaven. Look at Sarah. She was 90 years old when she gave birth to Isaac, the child of promise. 90, when her body was as good as dead, as Romans 4:19 puts it. God said, "Now watch what I can do." Her womb was closed for decades, not because God forgot about her, but because he was waiting for the right moment to show his power through her impossibility. What if your closed doors weren't rejection, but preparation for a miracle that could only happen now? Anna the prophetess was 84 years old when she recognized baby Jesus in the temple. 84. She had waited her entire life for that moment. Luke 2:38 says she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. Her entire ministry exploded at 84. When was the last time someone looked at you and said, "Your ministry is just beginning"? I'm saying it to you right now. Your ministry, whether it's in your family, your community, your church, or places you haven't even imagined yet, your ministry is just beginning. The wisdom you've gained, the faith you've built, the love you've learned to give unconditionally, these aren't retirement gifts. These are weapons for warfare. The enemy wants you to believe you're irrelevant because he knows exactly how dangerous you are when you're fully awakened to your purpose. You have something he can't steal, can't counterfeit, can't duplicate you. Have authentic relationship with God forged through decades of real life. You're not too late. You're not too old. Heaven isn't done with you, it's just getting started. But here's the critical moment, and I need you to hear this with everything in you. Time is shorter than you think, not just for you, but for this generation that desperately needs what you carry. Every day you spend believing you're finished is another day someone who needs your wisdom goes without it. How many more days will you waste believing the lie that your best years are behind you? If you still feel breath in your lungs, drop "I still have purpose" below. Because that breath isn't just oxygen, it's opportunity. That heartbeat isn't just circulation, it's confirmation that God still has assignments with your name on them. But the question that will determine everything is this: will you answer the call? Or will you let fear convince you that the curtain has already fallen? Listen to me, chosen one. We've reached the moment where everything changes. Not tomorrow, not next week, right here, right now. You've been sitting in the wilderness for 40 years, just like the Israelites, circling the same mountain of doubt, fear, and what if. But I hear heaven whispering tonight, you've circled this mountain long enough. Do you remember Moses, standing on Mount Nebo, gazing into the promised land with eyes that had seen 80 years of life, 40 years of preparation, and 40 years of leading a stubborn nation through the desert? Deuteronomy 34:4 says God told him, "This is the land I promised." Moses could see it. He could almost taste the milk and honey, but he never crossed over. Don't let that be your story. You see, Moses had done everything right. He'd answered the call, he'd faced Pharaoh, he'd parted the Red Sea, he'd led millions through impossible circumstances. But when it came time for the final step, the step that would take him from wandering to winning, he hesitated at the threshold. I need you to understand something that's going to shake you to your core. If you don't move now, the next season may not look like you imagined. The door that's open today might not be open tomorrow. The strength in your legs right now might not be there next year. The fire in your spirit that's burning this very moment might dim if you keep feeding it excuses instead of obedience. You've spent decades serving others. You've poured yourself out like water for your children, your grandchildren, your community. You've been the strong one, the dependable one, the one everyone else leaned on. But when was the last time you stepped into something that required you to lean on God? When was the last time you scared yourself with your own faith? Here's what I know about you, sitting there right now. Part of you is thinking, I'm too old for this. My time has passed. Let the younger generation take the torch. But that's not God talking. That's fear wearing the mask of humility. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to Isaac. Moses was 80 when he stood before Pharaoh. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Joshua 14:12. Age wasn't their disqualifier, it was their credential. They had lived long enough to know that human strength fails, but God's strength endures forever. You are not too old. You are perfectly positioned. But here's the confrontation that's going to cut deep. Are you willing to let go of comfort for calling, safety for assignment, religion for revelation? Because what's waiting for you on the other side of obedience isn't just a blessing, it's a complete transformation of how you see yourself, how others see you, and how heaven uses you. You've been playing it safe for so long that safe has become your prison. You pray the same prayers, sit in the same pew, have the same conversations with the same people about the same problems. But Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, "To everything there is a season. Your season of safety is over. Your season of supernatural is beginning, but only if you choose it." I can see some of you right now, and your heart is pounding because you know this message is for you. You've felt the stirring, you've sensed the shifting, you've heard the whisper in your spirit that says, "There's more. There's still more." But then the voice of reason kicks in, the voice that says, "Be practical, be realistic, you're retired. You're supposed to be winding down, not revving up." That voice is not from God. God doesn't retire his chosen ones. He doesn't put his warriors out to pasture. When David was old, he didn't stop fighting. He passed his sword to Solomon and said, "Build the temple I couldn't build." When Paul was imprisoned and facing death, he didn't give up. He wrote letters that are still changing lives 2,000 years later. Your greatest chapter might be the one you haven't written yet. But here's the truth that's going to hit you like lightning. This moment, this very second, is your burning bush. Exodus 3:2 says, "The angel of the Lord appeared to Moses in flames of fire from within a bush, and though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up." You are that bush. You've been through the fire, loss, heartbreak, disappointment, betrayal, but you haven't been consumed. You're still here, you're still burning, you're still alive with purpose. And God is calling your name. The question isn't whether you're qualified. The question isn't whether you have enough time left. The question isn't whether people will understand. The question is, will you answer? Moses tried to argue with God. "I'm not eloquent. I'm slow of speech. Send someone else." But God said, "Who made your mouth? Now go, and I will help you speak." Exodus 4:11-12. Your excuses are not stronger than God's calling. Your limitations are not bigger than his power. Your age is not a barrier to his plan. Stand up right now, wherever you are. I don't care if you're in your living room, in your car, in a hospital bed, or walking down the street. Stand up in your spirit if your body won't cooperate. Lay your hand on your heart. Feel that beating? That's not just blood pumping. That's divine rhythm. That's heaven's drumbeat calling you forward. Now say it out loud. Don't whisper it. Don't think it. Say it with the voice that once called your children to dinner, that sang lullabies, that spoke words of comfort to a grieving friend. God, I'm ready. Say it again. God, I'm ready. One more time, with the authority of someone who has lived through hell and is still standing. God, I'm ready. If you just said those words, if you just made that declaration, something shifted in the heavenly realm. Angels took notice. Demons trembled. And God smiled and said, "Finally, let's begin. Your wilderness years are over. Your promised land begins now. You've made it here. Again. Still breathing. Still believing somehow. And that's not small. Look at me for a moment. Really look. Because what I'm about to say is going to shake something loose inside you that's been buried for decades. You think you know your story. You think you understand why certain things happened, why certain doors slammed shut, why certain people walked away. But you don't. Not yet. You've cried in hospital rooms where the fluorescent lights hummed like broken prayers. You've held hands that never let go again, felt the weight of goodbye settling into your bones like winter that never ends. You've been left standing in empty houses that once echoed with laughter, overlooked at family gatherings where your voice somehow became invisible, used by people who took your kindness and turned it into their convenience store. The weight of it all, my God, the weight of it all. But here's what's going to stop your heart. If pain had the power to destroy you, it would have finished you years ago. It didn't. You're still here, still standing, still reaching for something higher, even when your knees buckle under the load. And that's not luck, dear one. That's not stubbornness. That's heaven shielding you, even when you didn't know it, even when you couldn't feel it, even when you screamed into the darkness wondering if anyone was listening. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. Psalm 91:4. You've been carrying bricks that were never yours to carry. Let me name them so you can finally see them clearly. The disappointment of children who never called enough. The shame of marriages that crumbled despite your desperate prayers. The rejection of dreams that died slow, painful deaths while you watched helplessly. The guilt of not being enough, not doing enough, not praying hard enough to stop the bleeding. One by one, we're going to lay them down. Right here, right now. But first, you need to understand something that's going to revolutionize how you see your entire life. That weight you've been carrying, it wasn't just heaviness, it was preparation for glory. Every tear you cried in the middle of the night when sleep wouldn't come, God collected them. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Psalm 56:8. Every time you got back up when getting up felt impossible, heaven took note. Every moment you chose forgiveness when revenge felt sweeter, your name was being written in eternal records. You think you've been wandering through a wasteland, but you've been walking through a refinery. You think you've been abandoned, but you've been appointed. The fire didn't come to consume you. It came to reveal what couldn't be burned, the gold in your character, the steel in your spine, the unshakable faith that even hell couldn't extinguish. Listen to me carefully, because this is where it gets dangerous for the enemy. You're not just a survivor. You're a weapon forged in the furnace of suffering, and now you're being deployed for such a time as this. Every senior who feels forgotten, you're their proof that God doesn't discard what he's invested in. Every broken heart that thinks love is finished, you're their evidence that resurrection is real. Every dream that seems dead, you're the walking testimony that what God plants, no grave can hold. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. All things. Not some things. Not the easy things. All things. That rejection you felt when your adult children moved on with their lives, it freed you to discover who you are beyond being needed. That financial struggle that kept you up at night, it taught you that your security never came from a bank account, it came from the one who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. That health scare that made you face your mortality, it awakened something eternal in you that no doctor's report could touch. You've been asking God, why me? Why this pain? Why this struggle? But what if the better question is, why am I still here? Why didn't it break me? Why do I still have fire in my bones when everything tried to put it out? Because you're not done yet. Because your greatest chapter isn't behind you, it's being written right now, with every breath you take, every choice you make to keep believing when believing hurts. That loneliness you feel, it's not because you're forgotten. It's because you're being separated unto something sacred. That restlessness in your spirit, it's not discontent, it's divine dissatisfaction with anything less than your full purpose. That ache for more, it's not greed, it's the cry of destiny trying to break free. You've survived for a reason, you've endured for a purpose. You've been refined for an assignment that only someone with your specific scars, your unique strength, your particular anointing can fulfill. The weight you've been carrying was never yours alone. God has been carrying it with you, through you, for you. And now, in this moment, He's saying something that's going to change everything. My child, you've proven faithful in the carrying. Now watch me work through the weight you've borne. Drop this in the comments right now. I'm still standing. I'm not done. Let hell hear it. Let heaven record it. Let your own soul remember it. Because what's coming next is going to require everything that pain taught you, everything that struggle built in you, everything that weight prepared you for. Are you ready to discover not just what you've survived, but what you've been saved for? You know what nobody tells you about being chosen? It hurts first. And I'm not talking about the pretty kind of pain they write about in greeting cards. I'm talking about the soul-crushing, bone-deep, God, where are you? Kind of agony that makes you question everything you thought you knew about faith, about purpose, about whether you heard His voice correctly in the first place. Let me paint you a picture that's going to shake something loose in your spirit. Moses, the great deliverer, the man who would part seas and speak with God face to face, has spent 40 years in complete obscurity, herding sheep in a desert, wondering if the palace dreams of his youth were just delusions of grandeur. 40 years of silence, 40 years of nothing. David, the future king, the man after God's own heart, lived in caves like a fugitive, running from the very throne that was promised to him, sleeping on rocks, eating scraps, while Saul hunted him like a wild animal. Joseph, the dreamer, the one who would save nations, rotted in an Egyptian prison for crimes he didn't commit, watching the sun rise and set through iron bars, while his prophetic dreams seemed to mock him from the darkness. And you've had silence. Years of it. Decades, maybe. The kind of silence that makes you wonder if God's hearing aid is broken, if somehow your prayers are getting lost in cosmic spam filters, if maybe, just maybe, you misunderstood your calling entirely. But here's what I need you to understand, and this is going to change everything. What you thought was God leaving was God leading. See, the enemy has been whispering lies in your ear for years. He's been telling you that the wilderness means you're forgotten, that the delay means you're denied, that the silence means you're not really chosen after all. But that serpent has been lying since the Garden of Eden, and he's lying to you now. God grows roots in the dark before He lets the fruit show. Think about it. Every mighty oak tree you've ever seen, every towering redwood that's weathered centuries of storms, they didn't become giants overnight. They spent years, decades, sending their roots deep into the earth where nobody could see them, where nobody applauded their growth, where nobody even knew they existed. The deeper the roots, the taller the tree. The darker the soil, the stronger the foundation. You've been asking God, why the delay? Why the detour? Why did everyone else seem to get their breakthrough while I got another season of waiting? But what if I told you that what you've been calling delay was actually divine timing? What if what you've been calling abandonment was actually preparation? Here's the part that's going to hit you like lightning. You weren't forgotten. You were fermented. You were being seasoned in the secret place, aged in glory, refined in the furnace of obscurity, because what God was preparing to release through you was too precious, too powerful, too pure to be rushed. Oil pressed too early spoils. Wine aged too quickly turns to vinegar, and a calling released before its time becomes a disaster. But you've been in the press, you've been in the aging room, you've been in the refinery, and every tear you've cried, every night you've wrestled with doubt, every moment you felt invisible, it was all part of the process. The wilderness wasn't your punishment, it was your preparation. When Moses finally stood before Pharaoh, He didn't speak with the arrogance of palace privilege. He spoke with the authority of someone who had learned to hear God's voice in complete solitude. When David finally took the throne, he didn't rule with the recklessness of youth. He governed with the wisdom of someone who had learned to trust God in the darkness. When Joseph finally stood before Pharaoh, he didn't interpret dreams with the cockiness of favoritism. He spoke with the humility of someone who had learned that God's timing is always perfect, even when it's painful. And now you who have survived the silence, who have endured the wilderness, who have remained faithful when faithfulness felt foolish, you're about to discover why it all had to happen exactly the way it did. The enemy never wanted you to understand this truth. Your season of hiddenness was your season of preparation for revelation. Every closed door was protecting you from settling for less than God's best. Every rejection was redirecting you toward your real assignment. Every moment of obscurity was building the character you'd need to handle the visibility that's coming. You weren't being overlooked, you were being overlooked. There's a massive difference between those two realities, and understanding it will change how you see every trial, every test, every seemingly wasted year of your life. The wilderness shaped you. It didn't break you, though there were moments you thought it might. It didn't diminish you, though there were seasons you felt invisible. It refined you, purified you, strengthened you for what's ahead. And what's ahead? What's ahead is going to require every ounce of wisdom you gained in the waiting, every thread of character you developed in the silence, every muscle of faith you built in the darkness. This is the part the enemy never wanted you to understand. The wilderness wasn't the end of your story, it was the essential chapter that made the rest possible. If this is resonating deep in your spirit, if something inside you is saying, yes, that's exactly what happened to me, then I need you to do something right now. Say it out loud. The wilderness shaped me. Declare it. Let your voice carry the authority of someone who has survived what was meant to destroy them. Make hell nervous. Because, chosen one, your wilderness years weren't wasted years. They were warrior years. And the battle you're about to step into requires exactly the kind of soldier you became in that secret place of suffering. The question is, are you ready to stop seeing your pain as punishment and start recognizing it as preparation for something extraordinary? Let me tell you something that's going to shatter everything you thought you knew about your life story. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment you felt crushed, it wasn't random. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't even your fault. It was warfare. You were abused as a child, weren't you? Betrayed by the very ones who were supposed to protect you. Passed over for that promotion when you deserved it more than anyone. Overlooked when you poured your heart out. Abandoned when you needed someone most. You've been carrying this weight for decades, thinking maybe you just weren't good enough. Maybe you just had terrible luck. But what if I told you the truth? What if I told you that every attack, every wound, every devastating blow was actually proof of something extraordinary inside you? The enemy saw what was on you before you knew what you carried. Listen to this carefully. In Jeremiah 1-5, God declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That wasn't just pretty poetry. That was a divine contract. Heaven knew your destiny before your first breath. But here's what they never told you: hell knew it too. You think the devil waits until you're grown to figure out who you are? Number. He studies bloodlines. He watches for the anointing. He sees the mark of God on a life before that person ever steps foot in a church. And when he spotted you, when he sensed what heaven had placed inside your DNA, he launched an all-out assault. He didn't attack your past, attacked your potential. You were maybe 5 years old when the first wound came, maybe 10 when trust was shattered, maybe 15 when your dreams got crushed. You thought it was about what you did wrong, but the enemy wasn't punishing your mistakes. He was trying to abort your destiny before it could breathe. Think about Moses. Pharaoh didn't order the killing of Hebrew baby boys because they were troublemakers. He killed them because he feared what they might become. Exodus 1:22 tells us he commanded, Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile. You were marked, and hell could smell the oil. That's why the attacks came so early. That's why they were so specific. That's why they hit you right in the places that would make you question your worth, your calling, your very existence. The enemy knew that if he could convince you that you were nothing special, if he could make you believe you were damaged goods, if he could get you to accept a victim mentality, he could keep heaven's weapon locked away forever. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been walking around for decades thinking you survived abuse, betrayal, rejection. You think you're just a survivor. But what if you're not a survivor at all? What if you're a warrior who's been in battle since birth? In 1 Samuel 16:7, when God was choosing David to be king, he said, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." David wasn't chosen because he was the biggest, the strongest, or the most impressive. He was chosen because God saw something in his heart that no one else could see. The same way God saw David's heart, the enemy saw your potential. That's why the attacks were so vicious. That's why the pain cut so deep. That's why it felt personal, because it was. Every time you were knocked down and got back up, you weren't just recovering, you were training. Every time you wiped away tears and chose to trust again, you weren't just healing. You were developing warfare muscles that most people will never possess. You think your scars are signs of weakness, they're signs of supernatural strength. You think your story is about what was done to you. Your story is about what couldn't be killed in you. The very fact that you're still here, still breathing, still believing, that's not resilience, that's resurrection power. Romans 8:28 promises us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Not some things, all things, even the attacks, even the wounds, even the years you thought were wasted. God didn't cause your pain, but he's been using every bit of it to forge you into something the kingdom desperately needs. Someone who can't be broken because they've already been through hell and discovered they're fireproof. Someone who can speak life into death situations because they've died 1,000 times and learned how to resurrect. The enemy's plan was to destroy you before you could discover your power. But God's plan was to use every weapon formed against you to make you stronger, wiser, more compassionate, more dangerous to darkness than you ever could have been without the battle. You weren't attacked because you were weak. You were attacked because you were a threat. If this exposed something buried deep, say it right now. I was born marked. That's why it broke me. But not anymore. Because now you know the truth. Now you understand why the storms came so early and hit so hard. It wasn't about destroying you. It was about discovering what you're really made of. And what you're made of is about to shock the world. But here's what I need you to understand. Recognizing you were targeted is only the beginning. The real question is, what are you going to do now that you know why? Let me leave you with this truth that I need you to carry in your heart long after this message ends. You are not a mistake. You are not damaged goods. You are not too old, too broken, or too late. Every attack you survived was confirmation of the treasure you carry. Every wound you endured was training for the healing you'll bring to others. Every tear you shed was seed for the harvest that's coming. Remember this. The enemy wouldn't have fought you so hard if there wasn't something extraordinary inside you worth fighting for. Your scars aren't signs of defeat, they're your credentials. Your story isn't about what was done to you, it's about what couldn't be killed in you. And most importantly, remember this. You are not walking this road alone. God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't given up on you. He hasn't moved on to someone younger, someone who seems to have it all together. Right now, in this very moment, he's still writing your story. He's still opening doors. He's still making ways where there seems to be no way. And you have a community here, thousands of chosen ones who understand your journey because they've walked similar paths. In the comments below, you'll find people who get it, who felt what you've felt, who are ready to stand with you in prayer and in purpose. So let me ask you this one final question. If God has preserved you through everything you've endured, what do you think He's preparing you for? Now, let's pray together. Wherever you are, whatever you're facing, I want you to receive this prayer as if I'm standing right there with you, my hand on your shoulder, speaking directly into your spirit. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with hearts that have been broken but spirits that refuse to be crushed. We thank you that every person hearing this prayer right now is proof of your faithfulness. They are living testimonies that your love is stronger than hell's attacks, that your purpose is greater than human pain. Lord, I pray over every chosen one listening to my voice. Touch the places in their hearts that still ache. Heal the wounds that still throb in the quiet moments. Speak life over the dreams they thought were dead. Resurrect the hopes they buried under disappointment. Father, open their eyes to see what you see. Help them understand that their sensitivity isn't weakness, it's spiritual awareness. Their pain isn't punishment, it's preparation. Their isolation wasn't abandonment, it was assignment. Break every chain of rejection off their lives. Silence every voice that has told them they're not enough. Cancel every lie that says their best days are behind them. Declare over them today that their greatest chapter is yet to be written. Provide for them, Lord. Open doors that no man can shut. Connect them with the right people, the right opportunities, the right timing. Let favor follow them everywhere they go. Let blessing overtake them. And God, give them courage. Courage to speak when you tell them to speak. Courage to move when you tell them to move. Courage to believe for miracles even when circumstances look impossible. Surround them with your protection. Guard their minds from discouragement, their hearts from bitterness, their spirits from weariness. Let them feel your presence in ways they can't deny. Experience your love in ways that heal every broken place. In Jesus' mighty name, we seal this prayer. Amen. If this message touched your heart, if something shifted in your spirit tonight, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Share what God is stirring in you. Ask for prayer if you need it. This community is here for you. And please, if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been feeling forgotten, overlooked, or defeated, share this message with them. Remind them they're not alone. Show them there's a whole family of chosen ones ready to stand with them. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey tonight. Thank you for having the courage to face hard truths and receive deep healing. If this ministry has blessed you, consider subscribing to stay connected with our community of chosen ones. Your story isn't over. Your purpose isn't cancelled. Your God isn't finished. And neither are you. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of who you are. You are chosen. You are marked. You are loved beyond measure. God bless you. And remember, you are never, ever alone.